curious to get everyone on the panel's thoughts. Do you believe Josh Proctor should be moved to Sam linebacker and then put in Lathan Ransom at the single high safety?
I love all these theories that come up on the internet and all these ideas that people come up with. And some of them are good ideas, and some of them, you just say, well, in theory, that sounds like it makes sense, but in practicality, it may not. And I don't know. We don't get to watch the guys practice. So other than watching the 8 games that they played this past year, you really don't have a firm grasp of what all these guys can really do. And I know that Ohio State's defense was exposed at various points, and especially by Alabama. 2 points in that game. They took them to the woodshed. So I don't know. I think they got to go back to the drawing board and figure out, again, I mean, they're a pretty good run-stopping defense, but that's just one small part of winning football games. And I think Ryan Day is going to put some onus on Kerry Combs and Greg Madison if he's still there, and Larry Johnson if he's still there, and Washington and Matt Barnes to give me some solutions, give me some ideas, give me some options, give me some personnel groupings, give me some people who can do different things, and just show me what we can do to get back to basics. And I think they'll be much better defensively in 2021. And some of it's just guys getting older and being another year older and deeper in the system. And, again, some of it is you're going to have to experiment and kind of step outside your comfort zone if you're Kerry Combs and figure out, figure out what's going to work and what doesn't. Because obviously whatever they trotted out there personnel-wise or scheme-wise against Alabama didn't begin to be good enough. I mean, there were other teams that played Alabama better defensively throughout the course of the season. Nearly everybody else they played, almost to a team. So, again, Ohio State's got a lot of issues on that side of the football, but the good news is hopefully they'll have spring football. Hopefully they'll have summer workouts, and it'll be a normal off season. And you have, other than your linebacker group where you're starting over, you've got veteran guys on the defensive line, probably 4 or 5 guys with starting experience, and in the secondary, 3 or 4 guys with starting experience who can kind of lead the rest of them. In terms of your one specific question, yeah, if Proctor can be a great run support player and he's their best option to be that third linebacker, then sure, why not? But I just don't know that that's necessarily the case. And, you move him there, it's kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's kind of like leaves you a little thin in the secondary, and you may be taking time away from somebody in the linebacker group who could really help you. So I'm open to suggestion on that.
I don't know if there are any words left to say. I mean, Steve hit everything there. I mean, we haven't seen anything. I don't know if Josh Proctor is the right answer at linebacker. I mean, the goal is to get the best 11 guys out there, but you can't put if your best 11 guys are corners, you can't, that doesn't work. You've got to fit the jigsaw puzzle together. We saw some good things out of Lathan Ransom. I think he's going to be really good as time goes on, but you have the lab of spring football and everything else, and hopefully the lab is open and you have the opportunity to try some things out. But honestly, this is the first time I've heard this, this question. I'm not privy the way Tony is to getting these inside questions, but with that being said, I guess I've never really thought about sliding Proctor down to a linebacker position. Honestly, you got to find a way to get your best guys out there, but I don't know based on what it is that I do know or what I think I know. I don't know if Proctor is the best guy to put at Sam.
I'll just throw in, I think it'll be good next year from a defensive standpoint if you have guys that are healthy, like Cameron Brown, who was going to help out the secondary. Court Williams is a young guy who they were talking about after the first few days that they really liked him, and then he got injured. I'm sure I'm missing some other guys, but Ronnie Hickman will probably finally be completely healthy as well. We saw him at times a little bit. So you've got 3 or 4 guys that are, quote, veteran players, but they haven't played a lot of football. And I think those are guys that are going to help the bottom line if they're healthy this coming season. So I'm excited to see how in the spring they're able to mold it together and kind of, show some new and different wrinkles and utilize the depth that they should have at each of these position groups going forward.
Kevin, I think you guys have the snap counts. I'm not even sure Marcus Hooker played defense the last 3 games because he was banged up. And so that's another guy.
That's another one right there. Yeah.
Right.
They didn't have forced them to play so much 4-4 against Alabama. And you bring him back and even just not even specifically him, just other bodies. Because you're looking at a secondary next year with Marcus Hooker and Marcus Williamson both returning. I think they might like to replace both of those guys with younger guys. And you could replace Marcus Williamson with Cameron Brown, who was there before Marcus Williamson. And then Cameron Brown gets hurt in the slot. And so then there's Marcus Williamson, who eventually then had to move out of the slot because it didn't go very well for him, move more to a safety. There's just we saw so many different things from the defense this year that I don't know how to apply it all to what we will see next year, because you'd think next year they would have more solid answers that would allow them to be more static in what they do. It's either one high or it's too high, and they just go back and forth. Whereas this time, we saw too high, one high. We've seen nickel safety with a nickel corner and all of these different slot things, and I don't know that any of it was necessarily. There's no bullet that we were so high on in 2019 that we never got to see because Pete Werner didn't need it because they had Pete Werner. This coming year, it's unfortunate this spring that Court Williams probably won't be good to go since he had his injury in October. And so I don't know that he'll be good to go. So you won't be able to see what he could do. To me, I wonder if they're going to go to more of a 4-2-5, like a true 4-2-5, where you've got a nickel linebacker like a Court Williams or even like a Josh Proctor, similar to what Indiana does, and you just play nickel all the time because they are so good at stopping the run. You would think that would changing out one linebacker for a 210-pound safety really make that much of a difference?
Yeah, they're going to just need some of these young guys to step up, especially in terms of corner. I mean, I'm looking at a guy like Ja'Kalen Johnson coming in. Could he come in and immediately kind of upset things and get himself right into the mix? Maybe be your slot corner at that point. They as Tony had put it, there are a couple of guys that probably need to prove it big time over the spring because it was a rough 2020 for them, and an opportunity really only knocks once. And if a young guy is able to come in and is able to do it cleaner and better, I mean, it's about playing for now. And somebody like a Ja'Kalen Johnson, I think, really could step right in and press some guys.
I agree. You had Alabama starting a freshman, I think, at that slot position this year. I mean, Notre Dame had an outside corner freshman starting. So, just because you have a freshman starting doesn't mean it's doom and gloom, especially with some of the guys they're bringing in this 2021 class. And I think you've got to do something. And maybe Cam Brown moves outside, and like you said, Kevin, Ja'Kalen Johnson goes in that slot, and it's maybe a little bit easier for him. But the key is they just have so many more options, and the guys that they were afraid to play this year, like Ryan Watts and Legend Cavazos, are healthy and maybe more trusted. And then Ronnie Hickman is a year healthier. Bryson Shaw, all of these guys are just a year older, and they've had so many injuries, and you would hope that would not be the case moving forward, and then they could just try and figure out what works and see what starts happening in the spring here in about 5.5, 6 weeks, maybe.
Evan is certainly the recruiting guy here, so he might be able to come up with the name for me. But North Carolina had a cornerback playing this year who was supposed to be playing high school football, but he was one of the 2 or 3 top cornerbacks in the nation coming out of high school, and they actually threw him out there for the entire season. He was supposed I don't know what the conditions were in his situation, kind of like maybe a JT Daniels where he left school early. But he was supposed to be on the high school football field this year, and he was playing for North Carolina and starting at corner.
Ohio State really wanted him.
Right, they did. I'm pulling it up because I think I know the name, but I don't want to screw it up.
Dre Bly Jr.?
No,
There you go.
Tony Grimes.
Yes.
Tony Grimes.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're used to seeing the reclassification in terms of basketball. Hell, Michi Johnson for Ohio State basketball, but we don't see a lot of the reclassification in terms of football. And yeah, I think that was one of the big things that got a Virginia kid to go to UNC. I mean, obviously proximity wasn't that bad, but he knew he was probably going to have a really good chance of seeing some legitimate playing time. And yeah, he saw all the playing time.
I was getting myself reacquainted with Lathan Ransom because I got to say, I don't remember much about his recruitment. 11th rated safety, according to the composite, number 167 player in the country.
And he was rated higher until he committed. And then 24/7 and Rivals just dropped him like a rock, like always happens with those recruiting sites.
Yeah, those stupid recruiting sites, the way they do their recruiting rankings, it is kind of the way of the world, I guess. Once you commit, you're dead to me, type of thing. But Ransom, I think there was a lot of buzz that he could come in and help them, and then obviously they lost some guys in the secondary, as we've outlined, and the need was there, and we saw him play. He was in the national championship game even, I think, on a few plays. So those experiences that those guys, the young guys that did get to play, even in small dollops like the wide receivers Fleming and Smith-Njigba and even G. Scott, those will really go a long way, I think, for those guys going forward. Paris Johnson as well played some key times in different games. So I think, it wasn't a lot, and it wasn't like it normally would be, but I think it was better than the alternative, which was nothing. So I think when you think about it in those terms, it was actually a pretty good turn for Ohio State, the young guys this year.